As we say goodbye to California and head east to Philadelphia, I want to welcome you to Baseball Haunts. I'm your host, F.D. Anthony, and let's get started. Once we arrived and settled in, we made our way to Citizens Bank Park, where we watched the Philadelphia Phillies and the Angels battle it out. One of the most infamous battles of the American Revolution occurred here. This is the Paoli Memorial, where Americans battled British troops in 1777. The Americans had several setbacks and in desperate need of a victory over the British Army. Now, Washington had 4,000 troops that he split into 2,000 on a left flank and 2,000 on a right flank under the command of General Anthony Wayne. Now, their hope was that the British were unaware of the troops' position. However, the British were quite aware of the troops. Matter of fact, the British, under the command of Captain von Munchausen, made their way to Paoli and laid in wait. In the early morning hours of September 21st, 1777, the British attacked, running through the woods into the American camp. The Americans were caught literally sleeping and were savagely attacked by swords and bayonets. Under British General Charles Grey's orders, the troops were ordered not to use any ammunition when they attack. The Americans were literally stabbed and sliced to pieces. Making our way through town, we saw the famous William Penn statue on top of the City Hall building. And we also saw the Curtis Publishing Company, famous for such publications as the Saturday Evening Post, the Ladies' Home Journal, and the children's classic Jack and Jill. Here at Independence Hall, it's reported that the spirits of Benjamin Franklin and Benedict Arnold roam the hallways. Now, reports state that the two apparitions avoid one another in their haunts. Apparently, Benedict Arnold still feels guilty about his treacherous actions. While we take a last few moments to admire Independence Hall, we're now going to shift our sights to Congress Hall right next door. This is Congress Hall, where it said John Adams roams. Inside the hall, there's a painting of Marie Antoinette, and it's said that John Adams constantly knocks over this painting. Apparently, Adams was quite fond of the infamous Queen. This popular spot in Old Philadelphia was established in 1773 and frequented by most, if not all, of our founding fathers. John Adams described the tavern as the most genteel tavern in America. Besides the founding fathers, Paul Revere was a frequent visitor. In 1834, a fire gutted the tavern, and in 1854 was torn down. The tavern was rebuilt in 1976 for the bicentennial celebration. However, visitors still report haunts, including an unwed bride who died in her room when the candles ignited the curtains, trapping the poor girl inside. It's also reported she can be seen in the tavern's window. Another apparition is a former waiter who was killed in a duel and reported to rattle silverware and move around the table settings. Another stop in our travels in Philadelphia was to Washington Square and the tomb of the unknown soldier. Now, the tomb is considered unknown because the bones interred could not be identified as American or British. However, the park itself was a one-time graveyard, and it has thousands of Revolutionary combatants buried there. Now, the local residents consider the park quite haunted, and there have been reports of apparitions roaming the park at night. The General Wayne Inn has a long history. It begins in 1704 when the inn was built. Now, it's said many famous individuals have stayed at the inn. Some included George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and even Edgar Allan Poe. And it's also been said that Poe may have even written some of his famous poem, The Raven, at the inn. Now, there's reports of a woman's ghost that frequents the inn, and some Hessian soldiers that hide in the basement. And many paranormal investigators have reported seeing these soldiers and described their uniforms from the 1700s. There is an abundant history of poltergeist activity. There's been a report of a cigar-smoking ghost in a then private room where a portrait of a man smoking a cigar hangs. In more recent history, there's the infamous murder of executive chef Jim Webb. His business partner, a man named Guy Cilio Jr., murdered Webb for insurance money to cover a debt owed to his father, Guy Cilio Sr. The chef was murdered on December 27, 1996, and found dead in his office. Felicia Moyes was Cilio's girlfriend at the time, and was so distraught over Cilio using her as his alibi, committed suicide on February 22, 1997. Now, it was believed that Cilio murdered Webb before Webb could close the restaurant and possibly sell it. Cilio was then convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. The General Wayne Inn has been vacant since 1998 when it went out of business. Several TV shows have showcased the General Wayne regarding its paranormal activity and the infamous murder. In 1975, the inn was purchased from the mortgage holder for $415,000. The inn was torn down in 2014 after more than 300 years of service and history. Now, the current owners have turned the property into a passive park where the famous inn once stood. All right, there it is. Our first episode of Baseball Haunts is officially in the can. I hope you enjoyed it. There's plenty more for next year, so like, subscribe, and follow us on Facebook. And remember, your comments and suggestions are always welcomed. So until next time, I'm FD Anthony. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.